is packed with 3 life support racks, 3 science racks, an additional crew quarters, and a new treadmill to further outfit the station to sustain a crew of 6 on board. The crew of Discovery includes 4 experienced astronauts and 3 first-time space travelers. Marine Colonel Rick Sturckow will be making his 4th trip aboard the shuttle as he leads the crew of STS-128. On his last space flight, STS-117, he also served as the mission's commander. Retired Air Force Colonel Kevin Ford will make his first voyage into space as the pilot of Discovery. Ford will be responsible for orbiter systems operations, station robotic arm operations, and will fly the shuttle as it undocks from the station near the end of the mission. Retired Army Colonel Pat Forrester is Mission Specialist 1. During this mission, his 3rd spaceflight with Sturckow, he will serve as the Spacewalkers Procedures IVA, the Intravehicular Activities member. Jose Hernandez is making his first journey into space aboard Discovery as Mission Specialist 2. Hernandez spent much of his childhood working alongside his parents as a migrant farm worker in California and Mexico. He went on to earn master's degrees in electrical and computer engineering at the University of California, Santa Barbara. He then worked at NASA's Johnson Space Center for several years before becoming an astronaut in 2004. His duties during the STS-128 mission include transfer operations between the Leonardo Logistics Module and the ISS. Veteran astronaut Danny Olivas is Mission Specialist 3. This will be his 2nd spaceflight with Sturckow. Olivas will participate in all 3 spacewalks during STS-128. Mission Specialist 4 is European Space Agency astronaut Christer Fuglesang. He last visited the ISS during STS-116. Fuglesang will lead the transfer operations between Leonardo and the space station, and he will also step outside for 2 spacewalks during this mission. Nicole Stott will accompany the STS-128 crew to the ISS. She is making her first trip into space and will remain on the station as a flight engineer for Expedition 20 and part of Expedition 21 after Discovery departs. She will return home later this year on Atlantis during the STS-129 mission. Discovery will bring home current ISS flight engineer and Army Colonel Tim Kopra. He has been a resident on station since STS-127 flew to the ISS in July. The primary payload of STS-128 is the multi-purpose logistics module called Leonardo.
It's used to carry racks and supplies up to the space station. We can load it on the ground, and then it's installed in the shuttle payload bay. And once we get to orbit, it's removed robotically from the payload bay and installed onto the International Space Station. And then we open some hatches and go inside there, and we can transfer fairly large items, what we call racks, and move those racks over into the space station.
Packed inside Leonardo and Discovery's middeck are 6.7 metric tons, or 14,800 pounds of supplies, critical for sustaining the station's 6-person crew. With Fuglesang in charge of cargo operations, Leonardo will deliver food, water, and additional crew quarters and an atmosphere revitalization system to be later installed permanently in the Tranquility node that will be launched next year. Leonardo will also carry a 2nd treadmill to orbit. The device is called the Combined Operational Load-Bearing External Resistance Treadmill, or Colbert. The new treadmill is coined after television talk show host Stephen Colbert.
There's always a challenge in that. It would be as if a moving van showed up at your house full, and somehow you needed to get everything off of that into your house, and then everything in your house back into that moving van. And so there's a little bit of a shell game going on.
The key objective during this mission is to exchange ISS crew member Tim Kopra with Nicole Stott.
we're called Shreks, or Shuttle Rotating Expedition Crew Members. And what's kind of fun for me is that I'll be going up on a shuttle and coming back on a shuttle, and it'll be the last time that we do that on the space shuttle, to bring a crew member to and from station.
Also flying aboard Discovery is the LMC, the lightweight multi-purpose experiment support structure carrier.
It is in the back of the payload bay, behind where the MPLM, the multi-purpose logistics module, sits. And it's flight support equipment that we use to carry things up to space, and we can actually bolt things back on it and bring them home.
The carrier includes a new ammonia tank assembly, or ATA, that will replace a depleted ATA on the station's P1 truss. Ammonia is used in the station's thermal control system to help reject the heat from the station's electronic equipment through a heat exchanger into space. The LMC will also carry home several experiments currently mounted outside the station's Columbus Lab Module, the European Technology Exposure Facility, or UTEF, and two suitcase-style devices called MISSI, or Materials for International Space Station Experiments, which expose various components to the space environment. A rate gyro assembly, or RGA, on the S0 truss will also be swapped out on this mission. Both RGAs on station have reached the end of their life. The other gyro will be replaced at a later date. The external logistics during STS-128 will be orchestrated in a ballet between the spacewalking astronauts and the robot arm operators inside. During the first of the mission's 3 spacewalks, Olivas and Stott will remove the depleted ammonia tank.
The first work site we're going to go to is the Port 1 truss area, which is along the truss long backbone of the space station. On there is the ammonia tank assembly, the ATA, and we will be essentially disconnecting that ATA and removing it from the truss segment and then handing it off to the robotic arm.
Pilot Kevin Ford will grapple the old ATA with the station's big robotic arm, where the tank will be stowed temporarily. Next, Olivas and Stott will meet the station's arm at the Columbus module. Stott will remove the UTEF exposed facility, and Olivas will remove the 2 MISSI exposed experiments. Ford will fly Stott on the arm for about 20 minutes, while Olivas makes his way to the LMC carrier in Discovery's payload bay, where the experiments will be stowed for return to Earth. For EVA-2, Olivas and Fugelsang will step outside. The station's arm, in an unusual configuration, will have its hands full.
So Krister and Danny will take the new ammonia tank assembly, and Krister will be riding on the arm. Danny will hand him the new assembly, and they'll go on up with the old ATA still grappled by the arm. So Krister will be flying up there, holding one ATA with another one grappled near his feet.
After the new ATA is installed on the P1 truss, the old ATA will be handed off from the station's arm to Olivas. Olivas will then hand off the tank to Fugelsang for the 45-minute ride on the arm back to Discovery's payload bay.
Ammonia tank assembly is the largest orbital replacement unit that's been handled by an EVA crew member. So it's going to be a handful, not only for the robotic arm, but Krister Fugelsang, he's going to be doing a lot of working out in the gym to be able to wrestle with that 1,800-pound mass, and he'll be the one who's responsible for making sure that thing stays where it's supposed to go and it's well behaved.
Olivas and Fugelsang will stow the depleted ATA on the top side of the LMC carrier in Discovery's payload bay. For the third and final spacewalk, Fugelsang and Olivas will climb back into their spacesuits to tackle a punch list of miscellaneous tasks. The spacewalkers will prepare the portside docking port of Node 1 Unity for the delivery of Node 3 Tranquility. Tranquility will be delivered during the STS-130 mission. They will install power and data cables from the S0 truss, clean up several PMA-3 heater cables from a previous mission, and move a network computer into a better configuration for Tranquility's arrival. Fugelsang and Olivas will also change out the S0 RGA, one of the station's 2 rate gyro assemblies.
Well, the rate gyro assembly is a piece of equipment that is used in conjunction with the GPS, or Global Positioning System, and it helps determine the attitude of the space station.
Fugelsang will install 2 additional GPS antennas and replace a remote power control module, or RPCM, on the station's S0 truss. The RPCM task will involve temporarily shutting down electrical power to nearly half of the space station. Near the end of the mission, before undocking, the Leonardo Logistics